I'm Sharon Spurlock. I'm the Senior Director of Family Education, and every once in a while, I get to do navigation. My navigations are primarily with students graduating from the UMSL Succeed program. I work with them to transition back into the community in St. Louis after they complete Succeed. And I also work sometimes with families that with aging parents and adult children. That's a little bit about me. I'm going to turn to Carrie next for introductions.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carrie Slimmy, and I'm the Assistant Director of Family Supports here at St. Louis ARC. I've been with the agency for 12 years. I started in residential as a direct support professional and worked my way up through management. Most of my time was spent in residential, working with aging individuals. And then I spent 1 year in our day program with the Aging with Empowerment program. So again, working with those who are aging, and then moved into family supports 2 years ago. A lot of my expertise is with over on the aging side, and I work with our Caregivers of Older Adults support group, as well as our Planning Forward workshop series. And then I will pass it over to Gabby.
My name is Gabby Mansell. I am also a family navigator. I've been in this role going on 2 years now. I have a background with children's services and family courts, but I think my expertise while being in this role is primarily in that transitioned aged group. I would say if I have to give an approximate age, probably the last 2 years of high school or so going through that, and then to age 30, where there's all kinds of new transitions happening. And I will pass this over to Christine.
Hey everyone, I am Christine Vaccaro, another one of the navigators, and I am fairly new to the ARC, but have been in disability services for about 10 years. I would say my strength lies in the school age population, from elementary up to where Gabby kind of takes over with that transition age youth, and a heavy emphasis on educational advocacy like IEPs, 504s, helping parents really get those things suited to be the best for their loved one.
Fantastic. All right. Well, we've already had a question like, I'm new to this. What is family navigation? How do I know if it's the right service for me? So, Carrie, I know you've got something to share with us about what is family navigation and maybe what is not family navigation and what should go through the case management system or some other type of service. So, can you walk us through that?
Okay, so Family Navigation, we are a service that's funded by taxpayer dollars, county board dollars, and we meet with families or individuals themselves, or both, ideally both, but we help families. I kind of think of it as like coaching, like as a coaching approach, figuring out what it is that you want, and then what are the steps to get there. Um, and I have this handy infographic that kind of helps define what is navigation and what is not navigation. Um, so navigators can meet with you and help identify options for your loved one, provide ideas and information to empower families with knowledge and choices. Whereas case management is a long-term service. So navigation is short-term. Ideally, we kind of complete a goal within 3 to 6 sessions. So we'll have one goal that we're working on. Whereas case management, that's going to be a long-term, lifelong service. We can also help with navigating Department of Mental Health, Medicaid waivers, and funding options, making sure that you understand what are your options. And we don't really intervene in crisis management or intensive crisis management or intervention. We're not really a crisis support. We're not on call. I will mention that we do help families with crisis prevention planning. So that might be something to take advantage of. But We also can provide access to provider lists and support and referrals. So referring to other medical professionals, different therapies. We are not personal assistants, so we're not going to go in and do direct support. We can encourage self-advocacy skills for the participant and family member and help you advocate for what your needs are. And so that kind of goes into advocacy and navigation of IEPs and school processes. I would also include ISPs in here too, helping you understand and how to prep for your plan. We cannot replace a lawyer, a benefits specialist, and we cannot give legal advice, but we do have referrals for those. We can also help you identify programs that might be appropriate or things that would meet your needs or desires. And then we do not provide any funding supports directly. Yeah, and then we have more information on our website. We have an About Us form, or it's our Contact Us form on our About Us page, and that's where you would go to fill out the enrollment form. All right, Sharon, is there anything else I'm missing?
Yeah, could you just explain the benefits of filling out a form prior to starting with a navigator or with our organization? What's the point?
Yes. So whenever you fill out the form online, that will automatically enter you into our system. And then April, she is our intake and eligibility navigator, and she will be able to see your information, and everything is documented into our system. And then there is a verification process. So before we can provide navigation, we have to verify the person as having a disability for funding billing purposes. Because this is a free service to families, there are some requirements there for funding.
And those requirements really are your eligibility with the SB 40 tax board, either St. Louis City or St. Louis County. If you're in St. Charles County, we try to refer you to our partner agency at FACT, Families and Community. I'm saying the wrong thing, Christine. What does FACT stand for?
Family Advocacy and Community Training.
So FACT is funded in St. Charles County to provide both family support and navigation. And so they would be the most knowledgeable, best prepared group for you to speak to. Doesn't mean we're not going to occasionally pick up somebody from Jefferson County or St. Charles County, but it's unusual and that has to be approved by somebody. But sometimes just to get the ball rolling, we can help clarify your thoughts. And so it does make sense for us. I'm going to answer one question in the chat, and then I'm going to turn it over to I think Christine for our next section. One of the questions that you've asked is, what if I call and you think it's navigation, but as the situation unfolds, it isn't actually? Can you still assist my family? And I think that is sometimes does happen when something becomes a really bigger situation than we can manage, whether it's crisis or ongoing support. Usually there's a navigation element to it. So we will try and provide that navigation service up until the point where there's no further goals that you can achieve with us. So if you want DMH waiver funding, once you have completed all the paperwork that is needed for waiver funding and you're sitting and waiting on a list, at that point, your navigation case is closed. You can come back as many times as you want with new navigation cases, but unless we can help you take action and move forward additional ways, we're not going to continue navigation. So it's just a practical kind of thing. And I see one more question. If we don't currently have a case manager, is that something we should pursue? And how does that work in tandem with navigation? Would one of you like to answer that one?
If somebody has a case manager, we do encourage families to reach out to their case manager with what goal they want to work on before starting navigation. And this is another reason to go through that Contact Us form and have that initial conversation with April, because she can kind of help you walk through that. But we want to make sure that we're not overlapping services with case management. So we definitely want to see if case management can help you first. And then if not, then we can step in and assist.
Well, as far as the getting a case manager, is that part of the eligibility requirements for some of the county tax boards? My understanding is that we can help you to pursue the process of applying with DMH. And I think that is a navigation service. In terms of why you should pursue that, in some cases, it's less important than others, but in general, Department of Mental Health is sort of the gold star of eligibility. And once you've been deemed eligible by them, you've kind of set the wheels rolling for any future services that you might need. So we do like to help people. And whether you may not need our help, you can go on their website and send in the application. But if you get stuck, that's where we're going to want to step in and assist you. So we can just do information and referral, which would mean we'd send you a link to what the form is and what you need to do. But if you actually need support from us to answer questions, that's when it becomes navigation. So I'm going to flip to our next question, which is, let's talk about those steps that you would take. Somebody calls you, says that they need navigation for a certain situation. How do you go about that process?
So the first thing we really want to do is narrow down our goal. So we want to talk to you and figure out what your priority goal is. Sometimes families come to us with 3 or 4 things they want to accomplish, and we really need to focus on what's most important to do first. And once we do that, for example, maybe you have an adult that you're caring for that you're going to need housing for in the future. And right now they live at home. So we want to focus on what type of housing your loved one will need, because based on that, there's different paths we need to take to get to that goal. And if we don't have a clear goal, we may do steps that we don't need to do, or try to qualify you and help you apply for funding that wouldn't be appropriate down the road. So we really want to make sure to have great conversations to really get to the heart of what you actually need or your loved one needs. Carrie, can you maybe talk about how we kind of like find those different resources and like the IDD guide?
So I'm going to share my screen again, so another part of the navigation process is to identify different options and resources. We do have a really handy IDD Gateway resource guide. This was developed by Productive Living Board. Navigators across agencies helped contribute to this.
And this is a document that families can use. You don't have to use a navigator. If you feel comfortable gathering information, we'll share this link with you as well.
Yes, for sure. So anyone can have access to this. There are common questions that are answered on here, questions that frequently come up with families, and there's also information about navigating services. So there are 4 different agencies that offer family navigation, and we are one of them. So all of that information is on here as well. It also goes into government agencies, so Department of Mental Health resources, and it talks about how to get started with them, and then what you would be eligible for once you are connected with Department of Mental Health. And then there's a video explaining different waivers. So lots of resources on here. There's a ton of different resources. It goes into by region, different funded services, so community living options, transportation, etc. And some other resources, assistive technology, advocacy, storm recovery resources are on here too. And then, like I had mentioned, family navigation. But that's just one of the tools that we use to navigate different resources. We all have a different, a wide set of knowledge and are connected to so many different things. But I do like to send that to families for anyone who wants to just a good place to start. And then I believe, Gabby, do you want to talk about creating action steps and accountability?
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so glad that we were able to look over that IDD Gateway resource guide. Like she said, that's one of many tools we enjoy using, and that one is easily accessible for everyone in the community to see themselves. So, creating action steps, that's going to be extremely important for us to reach that goal. So, we're going to be working together as a team, collaborating on what that may look like and how we're going to achieve said goal. We're going to want to make sure they're small goals to reach the big picture goals so that we're not taking any overwhelming steps or we're getting lost and confused along the way. So, for example, with Christine had mentioned earlier in regard to housing, what pieces in your life do we need to see move forward in order for that housing for your loved one to come to fruition in the next couple years or whatever your timeline may be? Are we going to be talking about getting them into some groups that help them with their independent living skills? Or are we going to get them into some groups to get them meeting people so they can find a roommate? Things like that. We want those small attainable goals so that we can reach that big picture goal. Also, what about accountability and follow-up? That's so important. A lot of times, agencies may be just giving you some information and pushing you along your way. That is absolutely not what navigators are going to do. We are going to be with you for a little bit of time to make sure that you're actually getting the help you need and to the people that you need as well. So we are going to be a warm, contact to other agencies and to specific people to make sure you're getting the right information in the right place at the right time. We are going to set up follow-up meetings with you as well to make sure our goal was met, or if it wasn't, how we can fix it and adjust it and try again. We want to make sure that you feel supported during up this, time with us. We want you to make sure that you feel comfortable and that everything that you need is going to be taken care of and addressed one way or another.
Thank you. Thank all of you for your really great answers. And, Gabby, I think it's important too for families to know we want them to learn how to do this navigation. And we know that it's so complicated that you're not going to be able to do everything on your own every time. But we really feel like we've had success when you know the steps to take the next time something comes up. So I think that's part of that action step accountability piece where we are saying, what part of this do you feel comfortable doing today? And how can we help you get ready for it? I want to play a little game because we've got a question I've been sitting on in the chat. And let's just play navigation for a minute. We've got somebody who's done some really good work on their own. It looks like there's a teen who's got some behavioral challenges that's already gotten a Missouri Children's waiver, which, yay, that's a huge step. And what kind of steps, now they've got the waiver, what do they do with it? That I find is often a challenge for families is I don't know how to get the services I need. So they've clarified it pretty well. They've specifically asked on how do I find an aide or an attendant working that might work with my special needs teen. So let's talk about that. What are some ways that we might seek out resources for this family?
You could do first step would be you can contact DMH. They have different provider lists. You can do self-directed services, but find out what your options are. Are you going to let someone else provide services to your child? Do you want to manage those services? So again, you kind of need to set a goal of what is going to work best for your family, and that will kind of lead you in some of the different directions and different services.
It's funny, I kind of skipped that step, which I think is really critical. I was starting to think about marketing. How do you put together information and find those people that you want to work with your family member? Do you want to create a flyer to put at universities? Do you want to, go on to your next door neighborhood Facebook page and try and market it and be creative about all those kinds of approaches. And sometimes we'll help people find people that we have on a list that like to do that kind of work. But Christine's right. You want to decide whether you were going to manage it or go through a funded agency first. So thanks for pulling me back from the brink, Christine.
You're welcome, Sharon, but I love how you think outside of the box, which is one thing navigators are great at, is kind of being able to see the big picture and look at things to kind of tease things out for each situation, I think.
So another question that's come in is, how do you choose which agency to do navigation? Do you just go to whomever is available? And I know that sometimes it's relational, sometimes it's about areas of expertise. What do you guys think? What would you say for this one?
It's your choice which agency you'd like to go with. You can, on the IDD Gateway Resource Guide, the agencies are all listed there. If it were me, I would probably go to each agency's website, maybe call each agency, get a feel for it, and just pick the one that feels the best. But it really is, it's your choice.
Yeah, I would agree. You need to find what works best for you. It's great if you know other people that have used the different navigation agencies, kind of, friends and family, pick their brain. But every family is different and every situation is unique. So really do your due diligence to find what works best for you. And don't be afraid to talk to an agency and then be like, I don't think that you're the best fit. We're not offended. We want to make sure you're getting everything you need for yourself and your loved one. All of our agencies collaborate together, share information, resources, things like that. So I think navigators as a whole really just want to help you as caregivers and parents have an easier time at getting through some of this difficult decision making.
Yeah, and every once in a while, we'll have two different organizations navigating at the same time. We might be covering an IEP support situation while the other agency is working with a family on a funding situation. So the more the merrier. We do collaborate really well together. And just a reminder, each navigation is an individual moment in time. So once we've completed one of those with you, once the next thing comes up that you feel like you need help with, you can request the service again and again. And hopefully won't need to quite as many times, because you're going to feel more confident in being able to take action the next time something comes up. So I'm going to give our navigators a chance to tell you a little bit about a success story that they've had, so that you can get a wider idea of the different types of navigation that we have. And I think I'm going to come back to you, Gabby. You want to start us off?
I guess I just wanted to mention a great family that I was able to work with. They came to me towards the end of the school year. Their loved one was going to be graduating from high school. The family was not speaking English, and so there was a bit of some communication errors between the school district and the family themselves. So coming to us, we were able to learn the family was concerned about what would happen after graduation with her communication device and her wheelchair. It was technically owned by the school through their funding sources. So they were afraid come graduation that she wouldn't be able to have those items anymore. So I worked with them with some advocacy skills and some future planning, and tagging in with the school as well, to be able to make sure that upon graduation, they were all able to successfully keep that communication device and the wheelchair, so that she wouldn't be without those resources post-grad. And that was really exciting for us and the family, as we understand that was going to be her way of communicating and going out into the world. So I was so happy that I was able to be a part of that with them.
So I have kind of a segue into where Gabby picked up with a family. I have a family that is new to the country within the last year and was having a hard time understanding our education process for their son, who's in elementary school. And he was diagnosed with a disability in another country. So then navigating how do we get that recognized here when they don't understand all of our systems? So we worked together with the school district, collaborated with another couple of big agencies here in the area. We were able to get them the correct supports, get evaluations scheduled for here in the States, and then also getting in school, beginning the process of getting an IEP that will better meet his needs in a language that supports what they speak, so he's more comfortable. So that's been a great process.
And it sounds like maybe a little bit more complicated process because you've got
Sometimes it gets
multiple
complicated.
layers there going
Yeah.
on.
I've done a lot of city navigation, and I worked with, or yeah, over the past year, I worked with someone in the city who lives independently, new to the city, doesn't have any services, and is also blind. And so we worked on advocating to get audio crosswalk accessibility installed at his traffic light by his apartment, so he could feel safe just navigating his community, like anyone should be able to. And it took a while, but we did it. And I actually got a text from him last week, saying that it was finally installed, and super exciting. I drove over there, took a picture, and shared it with the ARC. But yeah, very, very excited to see that.
Well,
And
you
we've
kind of
just,
reminded me, he's somebody that's probably had several navigations because I know you've hooked him up
yes.
with other services, helped him get public transportation set up with some support. So he's been a frequent flyer that's really benefited from navigation.
Yeah, we've worked on a lot of different goals. He kind of went from being isolated to now he has access to transportation. He's connected to different social groups. He's busy now, so that's really great to see.
Yeah, I love that too. I'm going to answer a navigation success, but before I do, I'm going to have you all think about this. Our last question in the chat is, what's our most frequently shared resource? And I love that question. I have my own answer, but before I get to that, I'll just say a little bit simpler navigation, but still super meaningful. I worked with a family. It was just a mom and her adult son, and they lived in St. Louis with no additional family contact. Didn't really have family outside of the area, but they were pretty involved in their church. And so I worked with them to pull their church members together that were connected to this gentleman, and they created an emergency plan. So if something happened to mom, driving home from work, there would be a plan in place that somebody would be able to be responsive to get the right people in place to help her son get the supports he needed if she was unable to do that herself. And that was probably 3 or 4 meetings in the church with different parts of the church family. And it really expanded into some other things because once the conversation started, they realized that they could do more with him without mom around. And so it really expanded his social circle within the church as well, which was fun. All right, what's your most frequently shared resource? Anybody? I know for me, it is sharing the lawyers page. Lawyers that help with special needs trust or decision-making supports or whatever. I feel like I am constantly sending the lawyer list.
I feel like I frequently share, it's not the most asked for resource, but I share our support groups and meetup page a lot,
Yeah.
for socialization opportunities, and also just for family support for caregivers. I feel like it might not be like the goal, like something that they need, but I often slide that into like, this is going to be supportive, or it might be supportive for you as an additional resource.
I love that. Just going to
Yeah.
remind all you families that we know from research that what you need to feel great about the decisions you're making is information, peer connectivity, and then actual access to resources. So we're trying to make sure we're covering all of those buckets when we're meeting with you. And so that's a great resource, Carrie. Thanks.
I always send to all my families our link to get them on the ARC newsletter. So
Mhm.
then they can pick and choose from any given time what they may need, but then you have information of what is coming up that might pertain to your family, whether it's a Q&A, a workshop, a series, maybe a social event. Like we have a big Halloween party coming up that your loved one might want to participate in. I just think it's a good kind of general information that's ongoing.
Oh man, I am so glad you mentioned the newsletter. I'm not sure all our families know that we don't automatically check the box for you to get our email messages. So if you're not getting a first Wednesday of the month Family Insight newsletter or a weekly Wednesday email from us and you want those, please let us know, because that is a great way for you not to have to remember all the details, because every week we're going to send you a little reminder email with all the different opportunities.
Well, with the other wonderful ideas they've already mentioned, I'll say I also tend to get a lot of get a lot of questions about that transition time period. So I send a lot of information about independent living groups and things amongst that, including, the ARC's own launch and NextEd. Those are also some, heavy hitters. They have a lot of great information as well. But and then of course I have different, support groups that would fall in line in that as well, with Uplift or the independent living resource group. That's new and upcoming as well. So that's mine.
Fantastic. All great, great answers. I thank all of you for taking time today. You know how busy you are and how many families that you're interacting with. Thank you and the audience for joining us today. If you feel like navigation is the service for you, go right to the ARC's webpage, www.slarc.org. Hit that About Us button and the Contact Us button. It is a very short form. You can fill out the form in 2 minutes, and then we'll get back to you and get the ball rolling so that we can start navigation.